When Ishiro Honda directed Godzilla, the undisputed king of the monsters, little did he realize that the character would live on and captivate audiences some 60 years later. What he also wouldn't have expected is that someday this character would be fist-fighting King Kong and living on a fantasy island full of all manner of kaiju. But as audiences dwindled, Toho then had to shift the tone of these films to appeal to a new, younger audience. Gone were the days of harrowing screams and death counts in the thousands, and hello were the days of manga and Saturday morning cartoons. And now it's come to this, Godzilla vs Gigan, where we're deep in the dark annals of Godzilla. And here we are introduced to the biggest annal of them all, Gengo. A struggling man-child and cartoonist who's now booked the gig of a lifetime at World Children's Land. This is a Godzilla-themed peace park. Yeah, a peace park with kaiju. Look, it'll all make sense later, maybe. Longtime producer of the series, Tomoyuki Tanaka, was publicly opposed to the direction of the previous film, Godzilla vs Hedorah, or more known in the States as Godzilla vs the Smog Monster, and wanted to then pull the series back to its basics, alien invasions, monsters destroying shit, that kind of thing, while also appealing to a younger demographic. Tomoyuki knew that director Jun Fukuda had achieved success with his all-ages film Son of Godzilla, and so therefore asked him to return to the director's chair for his new film. Where Godzilla is a giant walking allegory for nuclear war, I feel like Godzilla vs Gigan is more of a reflection on our pollution problem, but in the end, it becomes more of a statement on man's ability to fuck up everything they build for themselves. Just look at Gengo's situation here. He's a struggling artist who gets the gig of a lifetime, but willingly throws himself down a spiral of self-sabotage. Say for instance you were in Gengo's shoes and someone came up with endless resources and said, "Go nuts!" What would you do? Would you spend your time looking into the source of the money, or would you then rest easy knowing that your useless arts degree was finally paying itself off? And this is the fundamental problem with Godzilla vs Gigan. It tries to retread the same environmental message as Godzilla vs Hedorah, which to its credit it achieves with a little bit more subtlety, but in doing so negates its sole purpose as a film, which is to tell a straightforward and cohesive story. And in the words of Godzilla himself, something funny's going on. Yeah, that's right, Godzilla has dialogue in this film. Okay, so brace yourselves, because this is a good one. A race of giant cockroach people from the Space Hunter Nebula M have seen the destruction of their world, and so now they've come to Earth masquerading as the deceased in order to bring peace to the planet through the destruction of mankind. Here they head up plans for a giant memorial peace park entitled World Children's Land, but this isn't any old peace park. Fuck no. This is a scheme thought up by those pesky cockroach people to use 2 action signal tapes in order to call forth King Ghidorah and Gigan. They intend to use Ghidorah and Gigan in order to destroy all major cities on the planet, therefore these cockroach people can then build from the ashes. And stumbling upon this plan, old mate Gengo is now here with his band of freedom fighters in order to prevent these cockroach people from bringing forth the destruction of Earth. But wait, I hear you ask, through the power of foresight, didn't King Ghidorah die? Well, yes and no. Due to budget restraints, they actually had to use stock footage in order to create some of the most bizarre and scrappy fights ever seen in a Godzilla film. Yeah, this film actually used footage from Destroy All Monsters, directed by Ishiro Honda himself, but then also took audio cues from Frankenstein vs. Baragon, and also my personal favourite, King Kong Escapes, which, you guessed it, directed by Ishiro Honda. And do you remember how I mentioned before that the fights were scrappy? Well, that's an understatement. They have the style and grace of a drunken street fight. In the beginning it's not so bad, but I guess it's more of a showcase of Gigan's abilities. You've got him hacking into Godzilla with his huge hooked appendages, and also pulling him towards a giant row of razor blades that run down his chest. But then, sadly it quickly devolves into an all-out brawl. You've got Anguirus with his spined shell body slamming Ghidorah, and then you've also got Godzilla manhandling him, tossing him on the ground and then stomping on all 3 of his necks until he spews up blood. Yeah, this is one for the kids, alright. Poor old Ghidorah gets the blunt of all the violence here, but I guess that all comes down to the footage they had access to, but still that doesn't make up for it in any way. Like, Gigan generally just stands on in the distance, and then as soon as anything happens with him, he flies off like a wimp. But I love it. I love it all. It's terrible. The film is a paradox down to its very core, and it's just a failed mishmash of ideas, but it all comes together so gloriously wrong, and I love it. And they couldn't even get the title right. Is it Godzilla vs Gigan? Is it Earth Defense Directive? Is it Godzilla on Monster Island? War of the Monsters? Galen the Monster of the Galaxies attacks Earth? Mission Apocalypse? Planet Godzilla? Or Godzilla vs the Giants? Or my personal favourite, Frankenstein's Hellbrood, because that makes the most fucking sense, because Gengar and his band of ungodly fuck-ups could only spawn from the bowels of hell. But, you know, in the end, Godzilla vs Gigan has the style and grace of the home lobotomy kit, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But I can't explain it. Godzilla vs Gigan, 10 out of 10. At least it didn't have that fish disco scene from Godzilla vs Hedorah. Nah, who am I kidding? That was a great scene. Fish disco scene from Godzilla vs Hedorah, 10 out of 10.